politician and the Hong Kong SAR's first ex-co-convener, Chung Se-yoon, dies at the age of 101. Retail and online sales of alcoholic beverages to minors to be banned in Hong Kong from November 30th. And in the UK, Theresa May calls a cabinet meeting to approve a draft agreement on Brexit.
Good evening. The first Executive Council convener following the 1997 handover, Chung Se-yoon, died earlier today at the age of 101. Commonly known as the godfather of Hong Kong politics, Chung played an important role in shaping the city's future during the Sino-British negotiations. Sharon Tang reports.
Born and raised in Hong Kong, Chung Se-yoon first entered politics in the 1960s when he was named a Legislative Council member. In 1974, he was appointed senior unofficial member of the Executive Council. Chung soon became one of the key public figures who constantly travelled between London and Beijing during the Sino-British negotiations on Hong Kong's future. In 1984, he and two other EXCO members met with Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping in Beijing. Chung said they had truthfully reflected the wishes and worries of the people of Hong Kong in what he called a frank and thorough discussion with Deng.
We admit in my statement at the end that so far we failed to convince the Chinese leaders that there is a confidence problem in Hong Kong.
However, according to a record of the meeting compiled by the State Council's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, Deng made it clear during the meeting that the trio could not represent the people of Hong Kong. Later that year, Chung also met with the then British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher.
She also pledged, while she was in Peking, Her Majesty's government's determination to administer Hong Kong up to 30th June 1997 in accordance with the highest principles of British administration, with prudence and foresight, and in the best interests of the people of Hong Kong.
As the years went by, Chung also helped establish 3 local universities and the hospital authority. In 1997, at the age of 80, he became the Hong Kong SAR's first convener of the Executive Council. He was awarded the Grand Bohemia Medal, the city's highest honor. He made his most recent public appearance during his 101st birthday celebration. Having served the SAR for half of a century, he will forever be remembered as the godfather of Hong Kong politics. Sir S.Y. Chung, dead at 101. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Chief Executive Carrie Lam and top officials also expressed their deepest sorrow for the loss of Chung Se-yoon, but not all agreed that his contributions benefited the people of Hong Kong.
Dr. Chung was a great leader, was a great industrialist and a great leader. He played an important role behind the scene in the shaping of Hong Kong's future during the Sino-British negotiations and during the drafting of the Basic Law.
Sir S.Y. was appointed by London. So obviously they trusted him and also people like Lydia Dunn and others. But from my point of view, I don't think they have represented our interests because what we wanted was the right to elect our government.
On to other local news now, and the Chief Executive said Hong Kong and Shenzhen authorities are in discussion on a land issue. This comes after a report that a plot of Hong Kong land is being occupied and put to use by members of the Guangdong Border Defence Corps. Carrie Lam said while the two sides are trying to sort out the problem, Shenzhen has promised to stop using the land in question for now. Kay Long reports.
Hong Kong and Shenzhen have different understandings of that part of their common border. That's Carrie Lam's response to a recent report that a plot of land in Shuttlecock is being occupied by mainland border guards. She was asked about the allegation in the Chief Executive's question time at the Legislative Council today.
According to a recent report, there's another incident at Sam Chun River. It seems that the channel has been change. And then there's a private land, 21,000 square feet in size, being occupied by someone else for 6 years.
The Xi quoted Order Number 221 of the State Council, which was promulgated on the day of the 1997 handover regarding the boundary of Hong Kong. Xi believes the occupied land is on Hong Kong's side.
And we'll check our aerial photos taken over the years. And our colleagues also conducted on-site visits recently. The Sha Tao Kok River has not changed in its course, so the relevant land should be within Hong Kong SAR.
But it seems Shenzhen authorities believe otherwise.
In 2013, because of the narrow river channel at Sha Tao Kok, in order to prevent flooding, they just carry out river retraining program. And therefore, they are of the view that the demarcation line should be based on the new river channel.
The news broke last weekend. The report said mainland guards built a bridge over the river 6 years ago to allow them to go to the other side as they please. The mainland side has agreed to stop using the land in question until the matter is resolved. Carrie Lam was also urged to ease the crowdedness problem in Tung Chung. The town center there has been packed with people during weekends since the opening of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau bridge. Today, Lam suggested ways to tackle the problem, such as opening more stores at the Hong Kong port area. She also urged the company that runs shuttle buses between the ports to offer a booking system for passengers. As for passengers who just want to have a glimpse of the bridge, the CE said shuttle buses carrying them could make a U-turn once they reached the eastern artificial island, the entry point to the Hong Kong side of the sea crossing project. Kate Bloom, TVB News.
Minors will soon be barred from purchasing alcohol online or at retailers such as supermarkets and convenience stores. A new law will take effect on November 30th. It will prohibit the sale and supply of alcoholic beverages to anyone under 18 years old. The law also prohibits the sale of alcoholic beverages in vending machines. Businesses will now be required to display a sign about the law in such a way that it can easily be seen by the public.
Turning overseas now, after months of stalled talks and setbacks, Britain and the European Union announced overnight that they have struck a proposed divorce deal. But the proposed agreement faces major political hurdles, which could still derail hopes of a smooth exit from the EU. The Brexit process has reached its final stages. Last night, British and European Union negotiators let it be known that a draft agreement had been reached. Now, British Prime Minister Theresa May presents the draft deal to her cabinet and then to Parliament, which must vote on it. All other EU member states must also vote on the agreement. Its support isn't guaranteed. May is under pressure from pro-Brexit ministers not to make further concessions to the EU on the key issue of the Irish border. The main obstacle has been how to ensure there are no custom posts or other checks along the border between the UK's Northern Ireland and EU member Ireland after Brexit. Already, leading Eurosceptics in May's Conservative Party are talking about how the deal has betrayed Britain.
We're going to stay in the customs union on this deal. We're going to stay effectively in large parts of the single market. And that means it's vassal state stuff. We are going to, for the first time in 1,000 years, this parliament will not have a say over the laws that govern this country.
Britain hasn't so much struck a deal as surrendered to Brussels and given in to them on everything that they want and tried to frustrate Brexit, that it is not so much the vassal state anymore as the slave state.
Others who also think May has presented Britain with a raw deal include those who support the UK staying in Europe.
Well, given the shambolic nature of the negotiations, this is highly unlikely to be the right deal for Britain. We've made it clear throughout that if it doesn't satisfy our conditions, we'll be voting against it.
On the issue of Northern Ireland, all agree there should be no border controls, which could undermine the peace process. Irish media has reported that the draft agreement involves a common customs arrangement for the UK and the EU to eliminate the need for border checks. A sticking point has been Britain's insistence
that any customs arrangement must be temporary. The EU says that in order to guarantee an open border in Ireland, it can't have a time limit.
Premier Li Keqiang praised his ASEAN counterparts for managing territorial disputes and maintaining peace in the South China Sea. This as Beijing hopes to finalize a rule book to settle disputes in the region in 3 years. Our Jeff Tang reports.
The contentious South China Sea once again dominated the agenda as Premier Li Keqiang met his 10 ASEAN counterparts in what has been dubbed the 10+1 meeting. The state leader gushed about the trend towards greater stability in the region, citing improved management of territorial disputes. In previous years, with the declaration on the conduct of parties in the South China Sea in implementation, overall peace and stability in the sea have been maintained, and now the situation is moving towards greater stability, Li said. This year, thanks to concerted efforts of all parties, we have reached the single draft negotiating text. His comments echoed those he made yesterday during a speech at the 44th Singapore Lecture, one of the city-state's prized intellectual gems. That was when Li expressed hopes that a code of conduct should be finished in 3 years. Beijing and several ASEAN members lay claim to islands in the sea, and for years they have been discussing a pact to prevent an escalation of disputes. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte agreed with the need for a rulebook to settle disputes.
Everything has been excellent between China and the rest of ASEAN, except for the fact that there's a friction between the Western nations and China. That is why, at all costs, we must have the COC.
Li will also attend another summit with ASEAN leaders, as well as his Japanese and South Korean counterparts. That meeting is known as the 10+3. Meanwhile, US Vice President Mike Pence thanked Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi for supporting Washington's efforts to pressure North Korea to abandon its nuclear and missile programs.
Look forward to finding even more ways that we can work together, even as the President moves toward another summit with Chairman Kim, and to hope that we can finally bring lasting peace to the Korean Peninsula.
Pence, who attended the summit on behalf of President Donald Trump, also had some harsh words for Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi during their brief meeting with the press. Pence told Suu Kyi the violence and persecution by her country's military and vigilantes that drove 700,000 Rohingya Muslims to neighbouring Bangladesh was inexcusable. Suu Kyi's only response was that people have different views. Jeff Tang, TVB News.
The top economic advisor to the White House has confirmed that trade will definitely be on the agenda when U.S. President Donald Trump meets with Chinese President Xi Jinping. That's slated to happen on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Argentina later this month. Larry Kudlow stressed that both sides are communicating at all levels on trade.
The president kind of reopened the China talks, which had, I won't say they stopped, but they slowed down when he called President Xi. And it's pretty clear now that at the G20 meeting in Argentina, there will be talks between the two leaders, and in their bilat and what other meetings, trade will be included. There are a lot of things on the list, but trade will absolutely be included.
And still to come on the news tonight. Top management of Cathay Pacific apologises over the airline's data breach. Sri Lanka's top court suspends the president's order to dissolve parliament, while MPs pass a no-confidence vote against the new Prime Minister. And a diamond auction in Switzerland sets a world record.
Welcome back to TVB News. Cathay Pacific apologized publicly for the data breach that happened earlier this year. The airline's management also gave an account of the incident to lawmakers at LegCo today. Caleb Long has details.
The senior management of Cathay Pacific today apologized for the massive data breach. The incident in March affected more than 9 million customers, but the airline didn't break the news until last month. Cathay's CEO explained why they delayed the announcement.
Our primary motivation was to make sure that we were accurate, not just in terms of who was involved, but what data pertained to them. And if we could have compressed it and shortened it, we surely would have.
Hawk also promised to offer compensation to the victims, but they would have to approach the airline on their own.
And there's so many different examples here. If people are indeed individually affected, then clearly they need to come to us and we can discuss the direct circumstances that apply, because there's lots of different cases.
Earlier, the airline's management met with legislators during a joint committee meeting this morning. Some lawmakers were not happy with how the airline handled the incident.
Cathay has to be held responsible, and the management, some of them, will have to step down to take responsibility. Cathay, back in March and April, started discovering problems with the IT system, and they handled it internally. I mean, if you handled it for a couple of months and still couldn't sort it out, in theory, you should have called the police.
The airline stressed that its intention was good. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
More witnesses from main contractor Leighton testified before the panel looking into the Hong Kong station construction scandal. A senior executive accused China Technology of using false allegations to demand more money from Leighton. Haley Joe reports.
Leighton Asia's stance is unchanged. There was no systematic cutting of rebars. Leighton's project director Anthony Zervas said China Technology owner Jason Poon was only fixated on payment and not interested in the actual allegation. He outlined several factors that led to the eventual signing of a confidentiality agreement. Poon was said to have pressured Leighton to make payments even though China Technology fell behind its output schedule. He was also said to have escalated the issue unnecessarily. For example, Poon emailed the Transport Secretary saying there was an important issue that was in the interest of the public. Upon receiving Poon's email in January 2017 regarding malpractice, Leighton carried out an investigation. No evidence was found to substantiate Poon's allegation, Zervas said. Another witness from Leighton, Ian Rawsthorne, also testified. He said the general view within Leighton and the MTRC was that the underlying cause for Poon's allegation was commercial. Rawsthorne was Leighton's project manager who signed the non-conformance report the company issued to a bar-fixing subcontractor regarding the cut-ready rebars. He admitted to signing the report, but does not remember its content. When questioned by the government's lawyer, Rawsthorne said the issue surrounding the cut rebars was not picked up when the actual coupling work was being done. Rawsthorne said workmanship problems are very common in the construction industry, and the fact that the non-conformance report was issued shows Leighton did not cover up defective works. Haley Joe, TVB News.
Overseas again, Sri Lanka's parliament has passed a no-confidence vote against the government headed by the hastily sworn-in Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Lawmakers convened today for the first time since the president dismissed his cabinet and suspended the legislature last month. The motion brought by the head of an opposition party could mean that Rajapaksa will have to resign his post. After it became clear last week that Rajapaksa would not survive a no-confidence motion, the president moved to dissolve parliament. But the Supreme Court on Tuesday ordered the legislature to keep working until next month.
And Christie's auction house sold a pink diamond for more than $50 million US. And that's at a world record price per carat for that kind of stone. The Pink Legacy is described as being among the most chemically pure gems in the world. Christie's had been expecting to fetch $30 to $50 million for the 19-carat regular cut stone. It is the biggest pink diamond the auction house has ever put under the hammer. It was once owned by the Oppenheimer diamond family. The buyer was renowned jeweler Harry Winston. And from all of us, thanks so much for joining us.
That's all for now. Bye from us.